Are there any? I can ask more questions, but if anyone in the audience is interested in burning, yes.
I'm fascinated by the erosion picture in contrast to Weston and Adams' approach. Seems to me that picture actually combines both of them, but in a deeper sense.
Yeah.
I'm a geologist, so I see things in that picture that other people don't. It seems to me he had a sense of time.
Yes.
Because that road cut was not that way a few years before it was made, and so
Right.
we saw that process. I'm just wondering how much his relationship with, and we know about Weston, but he didn't say much about his relationship with Ansel Adams and the influence they might have had.
Will you talk a little bit about the Carmel community? We actually have. Thank you for that perfect question.
There they are. Well, there's Ansel.
This is Ansel. That's Brett Weston.
Dad.
Wynn.
And Rosario Mazzeo. And this was a Friends of Photography board meeting. And Dad was the one of the founding trustees.
And first exhibition chair. I mean, a position he held, I think, until
His death.
Until his death. Yeah.
And the photo community was a very rich one. There was not a sense of competitiveness. But each individual was very different. Ansel was a very social, warm, and generous person. He loved the kind of the politics of photography and navigated it very well, and he always encouraged Dad to be more self-promoting. And Dad resisted it mightily. He also encouraged Dad to try out the zone system. And so Dad said, okay, all right. And so he took a kit and he went back to his darkroom.
The book, the negative.
And
made notes.
And then he took it all back and he said, you can have it.
Ansel was very supportive, wasn't he? He was constantly trying to get your father to get his work out and sell it, and
he was a good
believed
friend.
in it.
He was a good friend, and when Dad was dying, Ansel would come and visit, and they would often talk about music. You know, Ansel early on had a decision whether he was going to pursue a professional life as a pianist or a photographer, and we know what he chose, but he still loved music, so they would often listen to music. There was a very warm feeling. And with Edward was very, very different personality. But I remember as a little girl going to Edward's house and having Dad look at his photographs and Dad taking his photographs to show Edward. Brett loved Mom's pot roast and her spaghetti, and so he would come maybe once a month for dinner, and instead of bringing, like we do now, a bottle of wine or flowers, he would bring a photograph.
Right.
Just what he was currently working on.
Cunningham was also a part of this.
Imogen?
Yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's a wonderful story about, two. Do you want to tell the first one?
When I was born, she wrote a congratulatory letter to Mom and Dad about my birth, and she says, by the way, Wayne Miller is coming out looking for photographs for the Family of Man show, and please bring your photographs up to San Francisco so he can see them.
Right.
So it's really through Imogen, that
yes.
happened.
That's
even.
Yeah.
And I have it in my baby book.
Right.
The other thing is that when Dad died, and we were all with him, he died at home. We were able to take care of him. We were all linked hand in hand. And Mother, after his passing, called a number of very close friends and family to tell them the news. And when she called Imogen, Imogen said, "Edna, what time was it?" She could be, you know, crusty. And Mom said, "Well, 3:15." And there was this long pause. And Imogen said, "I was sitting at my desk typing a letter to Wynn when I heard a knock on the door. And I just noticed that it was 3:15. She had gone to the door and no one was there. And she felt, and Imogen was not a sentimental person. But again, it illustrates the closeness and the heart connection with that photo community. And she always believed that it was Dad.
Yes.
Given his interest in science and technology, do you have any feeling as to what he would have thought of Photoshop?
I think he would probably embrace it.
We're asked that often. In the 40s, he actually got 3 patents for the scientific control of the line effect of solarization. He got patents in the United States and Great Britain and Canada. And he worked on it for many years. So, you know, he had this kind of rigorous, disciplined approach to things. But he was also very experimental and open to new things. And as Lynn says, we think he might have found very interesting ways to use it, but only in the service of creating meaning, not for the special effects, but for understanding more about life in the universe and our place in it. That was always the primary, not the interesting, you know, the light abstractions. For him was a deeply meaningful exploration of light itself, light as a force, and he was exploring that. So it wasn't just making pretty pictures of light forms. So he wouldn't have used Photoshop just for the effect, interesting effects that it could. What would you say?
I would say something very similar to that. Yeah. He was always experimenting and pushing his technique and what he was looking at and how he was looking at it. I don't think he would have shunned that kind of technology if he felt it could be used for his larger journey. Yes?
You talked about the photo community in a perspective of some of the I know you're involved in some jury review work in the Central Coast. It was going back from the history celebration in Carmel. Does that camaraderie continue today? Does that sensitivity live between the connections of photographers? I'll use the Central Coast community. Where is that today? Has that drifted? Is it strong?
It would be hard for us to talk about kind of it in a broad way, but certainly on the Monterey Peninsula, there is a resurgence of community. that I think is very positive and very supportive. I don't know about other places. Can you speak to that?
I mean, I experienced a very strong community in Atlanta of working artists, working photographers and working artists. It was, respectful and mutually supportive and very close-knit. I think it really depends on the place, and each city and region has its own dynamic, and that can change over time, for the better or for the worse. But I see it still existing in different ways. Of course, the means of communication have completely changed, but it's there. How are we doing on time? Another question? Okay. Yes, in the back.
So someone that you cite this work, this photographer deeply, and you know a lot about the past, but what were some of the things that he was kind of thinking about towards the end of his life? What was the trajectory that he was looking at, the unfinished work? What were some things that we just don't know about that I'm kind of curious about?
Can you answer that? Well,
go ahead.
Let me just, no, I'm not going to, I'm just going to go back to a picture because it was one of his last pictures.
Yep. That one?
This one right here is one of his last pictures.
I think towards the end, he was concerned about distilling his philosophy in his own words. Writing was very difficult for him, and he struggled with it, but there is a publication called Photograph as Symbol, which is a distillation of his philosophy, and it has, some of the photographs that he took. The last 4 years of his life, he was struggling with cancer, and so that limited his ability to go out and photograph. So he would go around the house, and we'd have stones and pieces of driftwood, and he would look at them and study them. And this is maybe about an inch long section of a piece of driftwood that was in the house.
Two avenues he was pursuing during the last years of his life. One was, how do you use the medium of photography to express the energy that exists in all things. We see things as solid, but they're actually in motion all the time. And that sense of that, he was delving deeper into the exploration of experiencing and expressing life as energy and light. So that was one avenue he was pursuing, and he was using the negative print as a vehicle for doing that. The other was embedding humanity in nature. And I think he, even though he died in 75, I think he was really very prescient in feeling that in order for us to survive as a species, in order for us to survive as a planet, that we need to be a part of and feel that connection with the natural world. And he was feeling that very deeply and expressing it in profound ways. And he talked about his sense that he hadn't completed either of those explorations. So I think if he had lived longer, he would have done more of that. But then who knows? Because he was constantly evolving and exploring new things. So
Thinking about his mortality, about things coming to a closure. That's why I kind of
yes,
pushing that question, because I think it's starting something, but it just hasn't been resolved.
Just before he died, there was a film made on him by Tom Tyson, and though it addresses Dad's photography, it also explores his thoughts and relation to death. And he felt that it was just a transformation. His body was made of light and energy, and it would just transform into a new level of existence. And it was interesting when he was in the process of dying. One day I went in and his third eye center became very visible. It was red. And he said, "I wish you could see the colors and the light that I am seeing and experiencing."
Well,
so he was expanding his reality and exploring existence. That
literally.
Literally.
One of the gifts he gave us is that he was so curious about the process of dying, just as much as any other aspect of life. And he shared that with us, and he talked about it. And it was a new journey, and he was excited about that.
It was the unknown.
Yeah, exactly. And it was a great gift that he gave us.
Well, thank you very much for your insights today.
That was intense, right? So please join us. If you'd like to buy a book, you can buy it in the desk in the lobby. Brett and Barbara and Lynne will be there to sign books. And if you are a member, then stay on for the reception with our guests. Thanks all very much.